This episode's a little different. We're discussing
anchoring
and how to do it the right way and not the wrong way.
That rain is like
you
full on.
There's always load on it, otherwise I'll go over the top and pull the anchor out.
So sit back, relax, and learn from our mistakes. And for you veteran sailors watching, would love to hear your tips and tricks. So join in on the conversation in the comments section below. So if you watched our previous episode,
We have just counted our chain and we have 50 meters, which is a lot, but everyone's sort of telling us that we should have more in the Whitsundays.
Well, it depends where you go. So it depends on the depth of water that you'll be anchoring in, and I think 50 is a minimum. It's weight as well. So if you're like racing, you probably don't want a lot of chain. It's very heavy. It's like, what is it? Like, I think it's like 3 kilos a meter or something.
Wow.
I think. I can't remember, but it's a lot, whatever it is. So if you've got 100 meters of chain, you've got like 300 kilos of weight up in the front of the bow, it's right up the front of the bow too. So if you think about the arm of the boat, you know, the levering moment that creates. There's a few things that you want to consider when you're choosing a place to anchor in. The first is the surface. So what is on the bottom? Is it sand, rock, reeds, mixture of both? Ideally mud. Sand is preferable. Holding in mud can be okay. We've found sand is for our anchor was the best, and when you pull it up you get a nice clean anchor, which is always nice. Rock is not great because it can dislodge, and also your chain.
In mud too, didn't we?
Yeah, we did drag a bit in mud, and when we raise the anchor, you got like mud and clay caked all over it, and you got to wash it off, and it's a bit of a mess. But yeah, with rock, the other thing is your chain can wrap around rocks, and also as the boat moves, you can have the chain can roll along the rock, and it sends like a vibration or a noise up the chain, which can be very annoying.
You can hear it all night. It'll keep you up all night.
Yeah, so things you need to consider are the surface, the maximum and minimum depths for which you're anchoring in. So you need to see how much water you have when you arrive, and then what the low tide is and what the high tide is. Make sure you've got enough water under you at low tide that you're not going to hit the bottom, and enough chain out that at high tide you're not going to pull tight on your anchor chain. And I usually, personally, depending on where we are, if the bottom is quite flat, at low tide I sort of look for a meter under the keel, just to allow for little things like if there's objects on the bottom like little rocks, or if the bottom is not always uniform, it's not always flat, sometimes it's sloping, so if you swing it might be shallower on one side of the anchor than the other. So if it's very steep, you might want 2 or 3 meters under you or 4 meters under you at low tide.
So I guess, yeah, how much scope do we usually put out?
As much as we need for the conditions. So at a minimum, it would be 3 times the depth, and at a maximum would probably be, well, there is no maximum. We'd put everything out if we...
Yeah.
So
we're very cautious here on Turkana. We hardly ever put 3 out. If there are boats close to us, we will put the minimum out. But the majority of the time, we like to have a bit of space around us, and we put as much as possible out.
So this is an interesting thing. So like, it depends on a whole range of factors how much you put out. It's not just as simple as, like, is it 3 times or 6 times the depth? It's never that simple. It depends on so many different factors, like how much room do you have in the anchorage? What conditions are you expecting? How deep is it? What's the surface like? All these different things. So if you've got an infinite amount of room and it's shallow and you're expecting really windy conditions, you'll put everything out, because it's the weight of the chain on the bottom of the seafloor that does the majority of the work in keeping your boat in place. If you've only got like a 2-to-1 out, the chain is going to be pulling tight on the anchor, and it's only the anchor that's holding you in, which won't work, and you just pull straight out. Yeah, the more you have on the seafloor, the better it's going to be for you. And then if you're in an anchorage where there's lots of boats and you can't afford the swing room, and you're expecting it to be calm, you might only put out 3-to-1, which is, basically you're just hanging off the chain. The chain will just hang straight down. Your boat will just sit over the top. But it depends on things like current as well.
We've got a bit of a wind against tide situation. It's not usual that we have the anchor behind the boat. So I'm actually having to get John to reverse up, which I don't think I've ever had to do.
Is the anchorage, is it flat, or is it like, is there quite a steep gradient? Are you going to swing into shore? Can you turn on the instrument?
Yeah. What does it say? 2 more things. 1, we also always reverse back on the anchor.
Yeah, so we just ensure the anchor's set. for peace of mind. Some people don't do it, we've noticed.
Feel free to join in the conversation in the comments below.
The other thing that I wanted to ask people about was their road. We obviously have quite a bit on board. We have used it once before. Very nervous we were at the time because we didn't really trust it. But I wanted to ask other people, do they use their road? Is that a question you'd like to ask as well?
How often do you actually use it? We're curious to know, because not a lot of people that we used it once. We were in a situation where we used it once, and to be honest, we may have used it more often. The reasons that we didn't use it is because we weren't sure of the condition of it, because it's pretty old, and where it's spliced onto the chain, it's a little bit suspect, and I didn't want to lose the chain anchor and all that sort of thing, and drift off. And the other reason is that we find it quite hard to retrieve. We've got a capstan on the windlass, but it's just when it's under load and you've got to wrap it around, just worrying about
in an emergency it could be a
disaster.
disaster.
Yeah, well actually when we dragged anchor in...
We won't tell them yet. We won't tell them. Okay, well I'll cut it for that part. If you keep on watching, you'll see the episode.
So some other considerations with anchoring is whether or not you might want to use a stern anchor. With a stern anchor, they're very, very useful in a very, very small number of scenarios. Basically, if you are in a river where you may want, sometimes you have wind against tide or the current running out against the wind, which causes chop, and you might have waves coming astern, which you don't really want. You want the bow into the waves. It's the most comfortable on the boat. It's quieter, it's smoother. You don't get the slapping on the underside of the stern. So you can use a stern anchor, which is just a second anchor tied up to the back of the boat, which basically pulls the boat around and holds it in a certain orientation. And where that's handy is if you've got a very narrow area to anchor in, which we've had a couple of times, you can just sit the boat, anchor it fore and aft, and then the boat doesn't move at all. Really good. We've had some great night's sleep like that, because the boat doesn't swing around. You're never worrying about whether you're going to hit anything.
It's a lot of effort, but
it's a huge amount of effort.
It's worth it.
It is, yeah. It's generally been worth it. The thing you got to be careful about when you put a stern anchor out, you definitely don't want to use it if you're coastal. In my opinion, like if you're exposed where you could have a swell kick up, or if you have very strong winds on a beam with swell on a beam, you could turn a bad situation into a very bad situation. Because usually when you're on anchor, if you think about it, the boat is always going to orientate itself into weather, just by the fact that it's only anchored on the bow, and the boat will always weather vane into the wind. So that way, usually the wind and the swell generally will align, so that will keep the bow pointed into the wind, which is the safest place for the an anchor for waves to hit the boat. But if you put the stern anchor out and the boat is now side on, like if the wind changes and the swell changes direction, now you have the waves and the wind on a beam. It can be very dangerous, and also it can be very difficult to then retrieve the stern anchor, so it's hard to get out of that situation sometimes. So anyway, stern anchoring is a whole other topic. We've got one and we're glad to have it. It's been a lot of work to put it out. On occasion it can get stuck and they're hard to retrieve sometimes.
John, that does not sound good at all. That's not coming out.
Yeah, I think it's stuck. And there's various methods of deploying them, which we can talk about in another video. Crikey, can you just help me?
My salad's gonna go for a 6.
I just need this tied off real good.
So what are you using?
This is the dinghy dangy.
You're using that as a stern anchor.
As a stern anchor.
It's a bloody dinghy anchor, and you're
I reckon it'll easily hold a 14-ton boat.
Who wrapped it that way?
Oh, I don't know. Someone who reckons that got all the time in the world.
Looks really annoying. A lot of this footage we haven't shared with you guys before, so we have so many crazy adventures ahead. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and thanks for listening to our tips, tricks, fails, and jokes.